Today on the news and why it matters, the impeachment trial finally coming to a close as the vote is finally happening on whether or not to allow witnesses. Also, Bernie Sanders surging in a new nationwide poll. Oh, what does that mean for the Democrat Party? We have got a lot coming up on this Friday, and it starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. Happy Friday. We've got our beer. I'm Sarah Gonzalez. Today joined once again by Austin Fletcher, YouTube host of Flecka's Talks, Austin Fletcher, in the flesh. And Austin, I just have to say, it's so hard for me because we've known each other, right, for a while, but I always read your name as Flecka's, and I always want to call you Flecka's on screen. But you have a real name, and it is Austin.
I have a real name, and it's Austin. But you can call me whatever you want.
When you get recognized by people, do they call you Flecka's?
Mostly Flecka's. And I also want to use this opportunity to thank you because you were actually the first person to ever share one of my videos 3 years ago.
Wow. Well, you're
Here I am on your show
welcome.
now.
It really is. It's so full circle because I was, as some of you may know, a reporter on the Blaze.com's website, like my next two guests, which I'm going to introduce in a second. And Austin sent the video, and I was like, this guy is good. And we posted it. So I like to think of myself as responsible for your entire career. It's fine.
All for you. Yeah, all yours.
We've got the Blaze.com's own Aaron Colin and Giancarlo Sopo. I got to do it. And Giancarlo told me that there is now a new emoji that's coming out.
Yep.
That's the Italian.
Whatever that means, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll think of you every time I use the Italian Giancarlo Sopo. Got a lot coming up. I know, you guys want to get to the news. Whatever, it's Friday, we're having fun here. Coming up, we're going to talk about impeachment, but first I just want to address yesterday's episode. So some of you who are watching on YouTube may be wondering where yesterday's episode of the news and why it matters went. Well, YouTube unfortunately removed the post because there was some news about the impeachment trial and the whistleblower and Rand Paul, and in delivering the news, YouTube decided to censor that news. So with that being said, we would like to remind everyone that there is a place where you can see the news and everything else uncensored, completely uncensored, because we here at Blaze TV believe in free speech. You can go to BlazeTV.com. If you use promo code NEWS, you will get $10 off of your annual subscription. Again, I mean, we're addressing some of this impeachment trial stuff, but that particular subject, we can't get into the weeds on. We can't really give you the full story on until we go into overtime on Blaze TV, because the big social media overlords don't really believe in all that much free speech. So please, if you want to hear the full story, you've got to go to Blaze TV. It's just a very sobering reminder of what we're up against when it comes to censorship and big tech. BlazeTV.com, promo code NEWS. So I don't want to bore the audience with this regurgitation of what's going on with impeachment. I think the American public is tired of dealing with it. We've been dealing with it for way too long. It's, Russia Part 2, it seems. But President Trump, as of the time of this taping, I will say as of the time of this taping, they have not yet had a vote on allowing witnesses, but it seems that he is headed for acquittal in the impeachment trial after Senator Lamar Alexander's decision to stick with Republicans and vote no on allowing more and new witnesses. Now, Mitt Romney, of course, came out just a few minutes ago, and said that he will be voting yes on allowing new witnesses. This isn't, I don't think, a shock to anyone sitting at this table. I don't think it's a shock to the people in Utah who really have had it with Mitt Romney already because his polling numbers are underwater. So we'll see how he deals with that back in Utah and what his constituents think about that. But all sources point to, yes, Donald Trump is going to be acquitted. Now, whether that happens later today, again, as of the time of this taping, we're not sure whether that happens later today or Monday, remains to be seen. And Senator Collins, Aaron, and Murkowski, have they come out and said yes or no on the vote?
Collins has said she will support witnesses. Murkowski has still not officially announced as of this time.
Okay.
I believe that if she was to say that she would support witnesses, that would set up for a 50-50 tie. And so then that would be kind of interesting to see how that would be settled.
Yeah. And feel free to make your points about impeachment as we have this conversation. But what I really want to get to is the optics and the way that not just Republicans but Democrats have kind of swallowed and internalized what this impeachment trial feels like, because we do obviously have an election happening in November, that all of this impeachment trial is kind of setting the stage for the election in November. I want to go to CNN's John King. Last night, again, our episode got removed, so we're going to be real careful what we say here, YouTube. You're welcome. But there was a lot of talk about the Rand Paul's question that John Roberts denied. John Roberts denied to ask Rand Paul's question. Rand Paul's issue was that he didn't say anything wrong. He didn't, allude to any sort of whistleblower. Why was my question blocked from being answered? Here is what John King had to say about the argument of, the whistleblower testifying. Watch.
Rand Paul went first and allowed him to ask. He asked his question. Named somebody that Rand Paul believes to be the whistleblower. The Chief Justice has made clear he wants no part of that, will have no part of that, and he's not going to do it. Rand Paul continues to air his grievances. He continues to air them in other ways on social media. I'm not going to help him promote that. He thought it was important to do this in this setting. Even his friend Lindsey Graham said, well, he thinks there are legitimate questions here. This was not the place to do it. Call that a political stunt. Rand Paul would say it's a principled argument. Republicans make a good point. The whistleblower started all of this. Why has the whistleblower never been questioned? Shouldn't the House Democrats have found a secure way to do that? It's a legitimate point of debate as we go through this. Is outing the whistleblower in a public setting the way to make your point? I think we could have a conversation about that.
Now, when you have John King making the point that Republicans have a really good point, you might be losing your base there, or at least having your base question what you guys are really doing in the impeachment trial. I want to get, gentlemen, your thoughts on this, but let me bring in really quickly, and I'll get your thoughts on both, Chris Matthews, who his commentary was very interesting as well. You wouldn't think that you would hear this on MSNBC, but Chris Matthews is predicting that there is a good chance that President Trump will win re-election with today's stage the way that it's set. Watch.
It's a bet. It's a pick, as we say. It's a pick. But I do think it's always interesting to put it all together, the universe. Bernie's rising. Bernie's going to do I've been saying this for 2 weeks. He's going to win the first couple. He's rising. That's telling the Republicans they got a good shot at reelecting this president, whether they like him or not. They're facing a future of hell if they go to war with Trump right now. As an individual politician.
Absolutely.
So it's all part of a big picture.
So, Austin, you would think that if this impeachment trial, the Democrats felt really solid about what it looked like and at least how the American public viewed it, they wouldn't be going on national television making Republicans points for them or, saying, hey, if Bernie wins, Donald Trump's got it in the bag. I mean, you would think that they would be hammering home all of the reasons why Donald Trump should be impeached. Yet that's not what they're doing.
Yeah, it seems like the Dems are more concerned about the perception of the impeachment rather than the impeachment itself. And we see this a lot with all these issues, the wall, the border in general. It's all about the framing of the issue. And once they kind of lose some ground, they try to reframe it. So with the whistleblower, you can't say his name, you're outing whistleblowers, you're putting people in danger. Like, while that might seem true, but that's, also the person we need to be talking to right now, 100%. So they keep reframing, and every time they do, I think they kind of lose that chunk of the apolitical middle and also that chunk of like the moderate, rational Democrats. So they keep doing it more and more. Bernie might be the most popular, and it should be an easy win for Trump 2020.
Yeah, I agree with Austin, Aaron, that they keep reframing. And while they do that, they're also losing context, right? We're losing context of why this particular person is so important to hear from when you're talking about overturning the results of a 2016 election. I mean, it's like we've completely lost why he's relevant to the conversation.
Right, and because we've gone so far from the point of that complaint, people probably barely remember what was in the complaint. And if you go back and remember, there was a lot of secondhand information. It wasn't like this guy had a lot of things that he had witnessed and seen and told somebody.
Right.
A lot of people gave him information. He compiled it and sent it in. And because of the way that complaint was put together, it makes it very important to know what were the motivations and who was involved? Because this argument that the Republicans have been making that this is a sham impeachment, it's kind of become a cliche thing to say, but it's important because who put this together? Was it a pre-planned thing? And that's what it appears to be, especially when you consider the connections to Schiff and the Intel Committee and things like that. Yeah. So it is important for us to hear from him. I'm not sure that the impeachment trial is the right place to hash that out, but there does need to be some accountability for the fact that this was clearly put together in a very political way as a coordinated attack to put together something that was impeachable, and that's what we're kind of forgetting.
So where do you, I want to get your thoughts as well, Giancarlo, where do you think is the appropriate place to hash that out? Or
that I'm not sure, and that's probably why some people like Rand Paul are doing it now, because they're saying, well, there's probably not going to be a bigger stage for me to do this, which is why he hops out of the Senate room and goes and does a press conference.
You know, everyone's going to move on, right?
Yeah, everybody probably is going to move on, but I think it is important for us to hear more from this whistleblower, from the Inspector General who talked to the whistleblower, and just, again, to know how this was connected to the Intel Committee and the investigation that started all this.
Yeah, Giancarlo.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with him. If I don't really care so much about the whistleblower's identity or any of that stuff. What I care about are what were his communications with Schiff. And then as far as like what to what Chris
hold on, what about his background?
I think his background is, I mean, what matters are like the underlying facts, right? And I think it's very clear now that there's no there there, right? The president didn't engage in anything illegal. It's not illegal for the president to encourage a foreign country to investigate possible corruption involving American officials or American nationals. So there's no there there, right? As far as like the 2020 implications of all of this, I think Joe Biden has been thrown under the bus. If you look at his favorability ratings, they're now upside down. He had been by far one of the most popular public figures in America for the past 8 years or so, and now it's gone completely sideways for him. His campaign's been a train wreck, and so what you've seen is a process of elimination that Bernie Sanders is benefiting from. I'd like to think that President Trump will soundly defeat Bernie Sanders, but I don't think a Sanders candidacy is good for the country, and here's why. The media and the DNC, they are going to gaslight this country for the next 9 months into believing that Bernie Sanders is some kind of mainstream figure, that he's been mischaracterized. They're going to accuse every Republican of engaging in McCarthyism. So I don't think that's healthy for the country as is. I think it's probably very positive for the president, though.
Want to get more into Bernie Sanders and how you guys see that playing out, because up next we've got these new Sanders nationwide polls. He is quite a jump there. We've got a lot to get into after the break. Bernie Sanders is now in a virtual tie with Joe Biden nationally. This is right before Iowa, of course, right? The Iowa caucus is Monday, so everyone is paying very close attention to the polls. Now, in Iowa, anything could happen because, as we know, they don't just walk into a voting booth and simply cast a vote by themselves. There's a lot of swaying going on there with all of the different caucuses. But Bernie Sanders has the support of 27% of Democratic primary voters. That is a 6 percentage point jump just from December. And Joe Biden follows closely at 26%. Now, that is down 2 percentage points from a month ago. Elizabeth Warren trails both of them at 15%. Mike Bloomberg below her at 9%. He actually jumped over Pete Buttigieg, who is at 7%, and then Klobuchar and Yang are at 5% and 4% respectively. Now, I did find this particular part of this poll interesting as well. Less than half of the respondents to this poll, which was an NBC Wall Street Journal survey, 45% said that they would definitely vote for their first choice. I mean, that's not a lot to me. Only 45% said that they would definitely vote for their first choice. To me,
swayed.
Right, either they're swayed or they're just not passionate about any of these people that they're hearing from. What do you think, Austin?
Yeah, it seems like they're not really excited, and they're kind of stuck with these options, like the establishment option or the anti-establishment option. They saw what happened in 2016 with Hillary and Bernie the first time. And a lot of people I talk to, they just, they'll support Bernie Sanders because he seems like a genuine guy and he's nice and you could tell he cares, stuff like that. I think Joe Biden won't get that same apolitical push if he ends up being him. So either way, how it plays out, I think there's an upside to both. You know, if you're going to go against the establishment person, Joe Biden, he loses the far left. If you go against Bernie, it's going to be easy with the talking points to go against socialism and, you know, kind of prove why some of his ideas don't work. So there'll be some upside to either one, I think.
Do you also think that some minor things that we don't think about, like maybe the weather in certain places in certain areas, might actually factor into who wins in the Democratic primary? Because, you know, if we're seeing numbers like, I might vote for him, I might not, I don't really know. If it's, let's say, snowing in Iowa or New Hampshire or any of these places on the day that they're supposed to go in and cast their vote, are they even prompted to actually make the trek up to there to cast their vote?
Yeah, I think the Bernie people would. Yeah. I think the Joe Biden people, you know, it's hit or miss there. You can kind of tell that by just reception at these rallies. You see, obviously, the Trump rallies, there's thousands of people overflowing, just waiting to be there and, you know, prove a point, show a message. And when you see, like, you know, Joe Biden's events, no one's really excited. People are kind of showing up, they're holding their signs, they're going through the motions. I don't think that base is as loyal and as, like, you know, excited about 2020 as they should be if they want a chance. So that's kind of our advantage, I think.
Yeah, like, who do you know is excited about Joe Biden? I know a
Joe
lot.
Biden isn't even excited about Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Joe Biden's telling people not to vote for it. Go vote for someone else.
Whatever, I don't care. Vote for whoever you want to.
If the candidate himself is not even asking for your vote, I'm not sure that you could be excited about his candidacy.
Yeah. Like, I know people who like Joe Biden, who think he's a nice guy, who have like warm feelings about him, and I get it. But at the same time, like, Bernie does have an army of committed Bernie bros who will go out in the snow and caucus for him, right? And that's the other thing too, right? So it's like, on the ground operations matter a lot in Iowa because it's a caucus state, and that's a whole process within itself. What's going to be interesting are like the candidates who don't make the 15% threshold, right? Yeah. In these caucus sites, what happens then to their supporters? Like, they start lobbying each other there. Those Bernie bros I get trolled by them all the time on Twitter, and I'm telling you, like they're pretty out there.
Yeah.
And energized.
Yeah, for sure.
I think what that poll shows is that Bernie's been under attack a lot over the last few weeks for different things, and those attacks seem to have backfired. I think people are looking at what happened in 2016 with Hillary and saying, well, if this establishment is really trying to suppress him again, maybe he's somebody I should take a second look at. And so those attacks seem to have given him sort of an attention and sort of drawn people to him as an alternative to what didn't work before and to what they believe is corrupt already. And so I think he's being boosted by that, by those attacks. And now that he's weathered them, he has so much momentum going forward. I think we could see his poll numbers get even stronger as Joe Biden is running around telling people, I'm so old, I might need my vice president to take over.
Yeah.
You know, Bernie Sanders is in a perfect position to take control of this race.
Which is interesting because, you know, if you look, well, at least the attacks that I've seen really have been on his ideals, right? These are his platforms that people are attacking, or his field staffers who are, you know, calling for Republicans to be put in gulags.
I think that's not even being covered, though. That's what's crazy about it, right? That, like, the media's not even covering this stuff. Like, this guy's like an open communist, and I know I've said this before, but the fact that, like, the media is shielding the American public from his extremism and his extreme past. Like, we were discussing, off air, that even while all the socialist parties in Europe were turning their backs on the Soviet Union, Bernie Sanders was still going to bat for them and going to bat for communism in Latin America. That says a lot about someone, and the fact that he's being normalized to that degree and that Americans are not being exposed to that information, I think is really troubling, especially if we go into a general election, because then they're going to work overtime to protect them.
Aaron?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Those attacks, the really significant ones, are not cracking sort of the mainstream media in terms of his staffers saying, you know, people should be thrown in gulags, re-education camps. The more extreme parts of him are not seeing the light of day. The worst criticisms that are really getting public are like Elizabeth Warren and the women can't win thing. And people didn't really respond to that except to say, maybe I believe Bernie and I think Warren is a liar because she's lied so much before. So the attacks that are actually breaking through to the general public actually seem to favor and boost him.
And you have to believe, Austin, that Elizabeth Warren, I mean, she's crashing and burning, right? I think we can all agree. I don't see her poll numbers going back up. I think she's already had her peak and it's downhill from here. Eventually, she's going to have to throw in the towel, right? Do you see Elizabeth Warren's supporters naturally flocking to Bernie? Because I don't know who else they'd go to.
Maybe, but not in the numbers that they kind of would hope for.
Really?
The Bernie team, I don't think.
Maybe Andrew Yang? I mean, where do they go?
Yeah, I think it would be more of an Andrew Yang type would be the next. I think the Andrew Yang is kind of, if the Democrats wanted to get back to normal, like in 2024, like run an Andrew Yang type, that kind of thing. But right now, yeah, it's going to get ugly after everyone starts dividing up because no one really is fully in line with anyone else.
Yeah, and I actually think the big problem that Biden has in this race is, in a weird way, it's Michael Bloomberg. Because Biden should be absorbing. I mean, it's very clear that Pete Buttigieg is a lightweight who has no business running for president, right? Like he runs a city, I think, like half the size of Irving or something.
How homophobic are you?
Well, so he's
No, come back to that.
so he's a lightweight that has no business running for president.
Yeah.
His supporters naturally should be going to Biden. But they're being absorbed by Michael Bloomberg, who caters to a lot of like these upper educated liberals who hang around in cocktail parties and they want to feel enlightened and educated and I'm so progressive. I'm voting for the first gay man for president. They want to have that feeling. So like Bloomberg appeals to those people, and so he's absorbing some of that vote that should otherwise be going to Biden.
And he's not having to get on the debate stage. He's not being subjected to the same scrutiny as these other candidates. He's just flooding his ads out there.
Yes.
People are seeing him and becoming aware of him, but he's not being really challenged in the public spotlight. So a lot of people are probably like, he seems pretty good from the messages that he is presenting to us, which are very packaged. But if he was to get on the debate stage and be challenged for things, maybe that would change a little bit.
And thank you for bringing up that wonderful point. We do apologize if any of you tuned into the show and were bombarded with Michael Bloomberg ads on YouTube before you watch this. I get complaints about it all the time. I'm like, we don't have control over what ads play before you watch this. So I'm really sorry if that's what you actually had to see. Before we go, we'd like to wish a fond farewell to John Delaney. John Delaney, who, by the way, was the longest running Democratic candidate in the 2020 race, if you can believe that. Right? Who? John Delaney. Giancarlo. Okay, he's been running for president since July 2017. I mean, they say the early bird gets the worm. That is not, in fact, what took place here. Unfortunately, Delaney was too reasonable. He was a capitalist. He didn't believe in going super crazy in Medicare for all and all of those things. And that's where you end up in the Democrat Party in this day and age if you don't believe in all of the crazy liberal policies. So farewell to John Delaney. Hopefully you can find better ways to spend your money at this point.
Take a break. He's been running for like 3 years.
I know. You need a rest, John. All right. Go vacation in Hawaii or
He also
something.
looks like that waiter from The Shining. I just want to point that out.
Wow.
You know what I'm talking about? Dilbert Grady?
No.
All right. Sorry.
I'm sure everyone else does. I don't know. I can't picture it. All right. We'll be back.
Like
Now I have to look it up.
The guy who spills the drink on Jack.
Coming up in overtime, again, we'll get to the really meaty part of the impeachment trial nonsense that you can't hear here on YouTube because of, big tech censorship. So you're going to want to tune in. You can go to BlazeTV.com. Use promo code NEWS. You can get $10 off of your annual subscription. And don't forget, subscribe on YouTube to Flecka's Talks. We'll see you in overtime.